Okay, here is the second part. Don't worry about all of this. This is the California emissions. You're not going to have any of this on your bike. Anyways, flip over your carbs. You want them all the drain screws pretty much sitting up on top. So just get them arranged like this. Next part is these 4 screws right here. Got 1, 2, 3, 4. So you want to unscrew each of these. Make sure you don't strip these heads. These are very easy to strip with a Phillips. But yeah, unscrew these. They should just pop right off. And this is the inside of a carburetor. Alright, and we got some float bowl or some floats. This is your main jet. This is your idle jet. And this is what we're going to be cleaning. This is what makes it tough to run after it's been sitting a while, is this little guy right here. Alright, but first thing is first. Oops. This is really hard with just 2 hands. Okay. Basically, there's pins holding these floats in here. There's little pins. We'll see if we can get them on the camera here. They're holding them in right here. There we go. So you want to get in there with some needle nose pliers. And just slide them out. They're just slid in there. They're not held in by anything. And make sure you don't lose these at all. That would be really bad. So yeah, let's do it for both here. Okay. And now you can pull out your floats. Oops. And attached to your float should be that little needle. And that just slides right off. And just take a look at this. There's a little plunger here on top. Jesus, come on, focus. There we go. That little plunger, just make sure that pushes in freely. Oh, jeez. Make sure there's no dirt, no grime, nothing on here. And just toss that aside for later. But now, where that came out of, right here. We need to get this out, and I believe this is a 10 millimeter. This is a 10 millimeter socket, so let's get that real quick. Okay. We got the 10 millimeter socket. Let's put it so it loosens. Okay. And just pop that sucker out of there. And this is what is inside. Let's see here. What this is a mini fuel filter inside of each of each of the carbs. So make sure that you clean this guy out. Make sure you can see through him and there's no junk in there. Do not lose this washer. It's no good. But after this is cleaned out, you can just toss it back in there, tighten it back up. Good to go. Now the fun part, let's get these jets out. There should be two here with a flathead fitting. We got this one and this one, and we'll just start with the smaller one first. It is best if you get a screwdriver here that does not allow any wiggle room. This is a really bad example of that. This is going to destroy your jets. It's going to deform the brass right here, but I don't use these anymore, so this is okay. So let's just screw this guy out. And this is your idle jet. Alright, there we go. Now you see those little holes there on the left? We need to make sure those are clean. So this right here is what you spray with carb cleaner. What you do is you stick the needle down this hole, and in theory you want to be able to see light through that little hole. So there we go. You can see through this one. That's how you know this one is clean. There's light through it, so everything's good here. It's also a good idea to take note. There are numbers here on the side of these jets. Now, I believe the stock number is 35. So just write this down. If it's anything other than 35 and you have issues later with the idle circuit, then you know that, this is the problem. Yeah, 35. This one's actually a 40. I picked this up. This was a second-hand set of carbs. So this one's a little bit bigger. That's why it's not in the running bike right now. Okay, well, you screw that in there. Make sure it's nice and tight. I'm not tightening it right now just for the sake of shortness of a video. But now second, what we want to do is get this guy out. This is the main jet. These ones do not clog as much. Usually you're okay here. But let's break this guy out. Now this one is actually in two parts. There's the first one that you take out with a screwdriver. Now this also has a number on it. It's going to be really hard to see. This one is 105. You probably couldn't see that. I don't know if it zoomed in well enough. But yeah, just write that down. Now the second part, you need I think it's a 6mm, it's either 8 or 6mm ratchet here. Let's see, 8, yeah, it's 6. Or maybe it's a 7. What do you know? Just loosen this guy up. See, still the same hole. And we have more or less the same thing we saw with the idle jet. Come on, zoom in here. There we go. These holes need to be cleaned out too, and you should be able to see through it again if you're looking into the sunlight. And there we go. Tightened. Oops. Yeah, you get the idea. And put your float and needle back in here. Also note, make sure there's no holes in this float. If there's holes in it, you're gonna have to buy a new one. You should be okay. They usually don't pop. So yeah, get this guy back together. Make sure this little needle's still on there. Little dangler. And you want to line that back up in that hole right there. Line it back up. Oh yeah, everything's not tightened down, that's why. Anyways, then you just want to stick that pin right back through there. Make sure it's all lined up. And to be honest, that's more or less your carbs right there. That's the quick, easy way to get it back running. The last thing we're going to do is make sure your idle fuel is set properly, or at least set to manufacturer's recommendation. Now what you do here when these are popped open, you need to make sure they're popped open still, because there's these screws here on the outside, literally right next to the top. Oops, these screws right here. Now some have a cap on them, like this one has a silver cap with a slot for a flathead. Some of them, like on this side, don't have the cap, and they're just going to be that brass nib right there, and that's also going to be flathead, and that's the brass nib right there. But what you want to do is get in here, and you want to count the amount of turns. We're going to screw it inwards first, so count the amount of turns. We got 1/2, 1. We got 1.5, 2. We got 2.5 right there. So write that down. Now that's exactly where you want it, is at 2.5. That is the manufacturer's base setting, is 2.5 turns out. So now this is seated, and don't screw this in hard. This just needs to seat, and that's it. But once it's seated, you just back it out. You go 1/2, 1, 1/2, 2, 1/2, and you're good to go. Keep it right there. And now the thing to note though, the outside carbs 1 and 4, they're going to be located on the outside. So right here on this outside, the other ones right here on the outside. Now the inner ones are switched. The inner ones are going to be on the inside here. So this is the inner one, and this is the other one. So you want to screw them all the way in, count how many times, and if it's anything other than 2.5 turns, you know that someone's been messing with it. So once they've rested, you just back them out 2.5, and you should be good to go. And so screw everything back together, plug it up, let me know how everything goes.